Life of our guest on Bywords this evening is virtually the history of the American theater. I'm Milton Metz from WHAS, and my guest is my good friend and the distinguished American actor Victor Jory. Now, Jory is an interesting man no matter what angle you come at him from. He's been, and we'll look into that. First of all, in private life, he's great company. He's a great cook. And in his professional life, there's almost nothing he hasn't done. I don't know whether he's done burlesque, but Vic has been active in films, in television, in play acting and play directing. You name it, radio acting, he's done it. Have you ever done burlesque, Victor?
I did burlesque for 2 weeks. Same place that Mr. Endo, the conductor, went to college in Long Beach. That's, let's see, I was about 18. I actually only lasted a week and 3 days.
You were a baggy pants
No, I was doing straight man, a straight boy.
I see.
And I didn't know the routines. I doubt if I'd have been any good if I'd known the routines.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be corny about it. I've never seen you do anything bad at all on the stage or on the films. And what gets me about you, Victor, is the wide range of roles you have done. I have seen you do a drawing room comedy in Tails and White Tie, and then as a toothless southern dirt farmer a week later, equally convincing.
Well, that's a matter of your opinion, Milton, which in this case I don't value very much because I've done some terrible things. I'll call your attention to 3 or 4 films that everybody should see because they're so bad. I did a film called Wrangell River in Australia. Everybody should see that film. It's remarkably awful, and I was terrible in it. I did a thing called Power in Jamaica. That's frightening. And we did a thing which beats all of them, which was supposed to take 28 days and took 7 days, called Catwomen of the Moon with Sonny Tufts.
Oh yes, a famous name in American music.
Those are examples.
But that's remarkable. Do the failures, as you put them, stay with you as long as the big successes?
I think you remember the failures more than you do the big successes.
You have a unique relationship with the people of Louisville and Kentuckiana.
Yes, I have. They're lovely people. I guess it's difficult to say that people in one city are nicer, more friendly than the city in another city, but I find it true. I find the hospitality here is unbelievable.
You've been coming to our city of Louisville. We're in the basement, by the way, of Actors Theatre. It's called The Starving Artist, sort of a cabaret underneath the theater. You've been coming here for about a dozen years. Did you ever stop to think that it was just a circumstance of your son having been appointed artistic director of the famous Actors Theatre of Louisville?
That's the reason I came here, was because John was running the theater. We have a very deep love for each other and a great respect. I have more respect for him, I think, than he has for me. He knows me better. But he's a genius of a sort. And he's a fine director, and has built this theater from, I think, 4,000 subscribers to, I don't know, 20,000 or more.
If you were the drama critic of the New York Times, or the Washington Post, or the Louisville Times, or Courier Journal, how would you assess Victor Jory?
Victor Jory?
Yeah.
Myself?
Yes. I
would say this man has not much quality, but he certainly has quantity. He's done 132 features, over 600 television shows, over 1,000 radio shows, over 400 plays, and a lot of them were very bad. And occasionally, by mistake, he's done some very good things, too. He's loquacious, he's verbose. That talks a lot.
Thank you.
I want to explain those things to you.
Yes, anything over one syllable.
That's right. I don't think I'd say anything about Victor Jory. I'd forget him. I'm going to be forgotten anyway in a very short time. I've quit acting.
Victor,
Except here.
what has kept you from becoming, after all these years, from becoming cynical? You have the enthusiasm of a teenager when it comes to a new theatrical project. When you meet new people, your eyes glisten. You're into your 8th decade.
Yes, I think eighth. Yes, no, that's 80, isn't it?
Something.
No, I'm not 80.
No, but you're approaching it.
Yes, I'm approaching it.
Now, the point I make is that you don't show any of those signs of wear or cynicism. Why is that?
Well, I have a profound interest in what's going on in the world, I guess. There are many things I like to do. I like to travel. I've traveled a lot. I read a great deal. I'm interested in theater and some films and an occasional television show. And radio I'm very, very fond of. I've been with you on radio, haven't I? Yes, I have, 2 or 3 times, several times. You're very good. To deviate, there was a letter written in I believe the Courier Journal, maybe it was the Times, the other night. They ran a picture of you. And they said that, the man said that your kindliness and your professionalism were such that he would hope that you would work in television and radio forever. And I think that's true. You have a great knack. Maybe I should interview you.
No, this is your half hour, Victor. You embarrassed me, and I thank you very much. It was nice of that woman to write that.
Was it a woman?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's good. Well.
Do you remember great things, great theatrical experiences from your career? Like, for instance,
I think
you did maybe the most famous motion picture ever made, Margaret Mitchell's
Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind.
Mm-hmm. I'm the only person left alive from that show.
Pardon me?
I'm the only person left alive
Right.
from that picture.
Now that...
No, I guess the little black girl,
McQueen.
Butterfly McQueen, is still alive.
You remember that as a high point, or only later on because it became so celebrated?
Only later on, at the time we were making it, they were lovely people, Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable and people like that, Thomas Mitchell, Olivia de Havilland, but we didn't think of it as the one picture that would go into posterity, would cross over that bridge. We thought of it would probably be a good film, but actually it's the only film that has retained its full ripeness and richness. I guess it's the only film that has lasted several decades. Let's see, 37, 47, 57, 67, 70. It's almost 5 decades.
And has not seemed to be dated?
No, it's not dated. It plays beautifully. Now, I can recall other films like John Ford's The Informer and How Green Was My Valley and several other films that I thought would last forever, but they show their talent is showing. It's like a lady's slip. It begins to show the workings and the relative acting of a time, of an era, reporting of an era.
It seems to me that your career reflects you're moving with the times, that never were you dated. Right now, for instance, on the boards in this very building in which we are situated in downtown Louisville is running a delightful, very, very well-received play by the audience and the critics alike called On Golden Pond.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
A thoroughly enjoyable, wonderfully structured play that you directed.
Yes.
And that's as recent as today.
Yes, it's a lovely, lovely, civilized, I guess, romantic comedy. It has a few tears and a lot of laughs, and it's believable. It is well structured.
But doesn't that give you a great source of pride that here today, if you'll forgive me, in the afternoon of your life, you are as productive and creative as you were a half a century ago, and maybe more so because of your added experience.
Well, I would hope more so, or else it'd be a sad thing if I'm not better at 60 than I was at 30. If I'm not better at, and you know, unless I get a little senile at 78 than I was at.
Doesn't always happen that way, though.
I know it doesn't always happen that way. I think maybe it's lethargy or maybe it's lack of interest that causes people to lack the same enthusiasm that they had when they were young.
How about that enthusiasm in your latter days? See, I haven't known you for a long time. This is more than just an interview to me. You are an old friend whom I love and respect, and I hope that won't get in the way of an interesting interview for our audience. But I notice when you come to a new situation, you meet a new young person, a new situation, a new restaurant, a new program. You greet it with unfailing enthusiasm, which is usually marked by the young, and I think that's remarkable.
Well, it's nice of you to say that. I'm not aware that I do this, unless I'm reminded of it or told of it. I have great enthusiasms.
Yes.
And I suppose they show themselves.
Well, is it the genes that
Sir?
you've inherited from?
No. My father was a farmer, and my mother was a sort of a newspaper woman. I think she sold ads. There weren't any actors in my family, or any entertainers, or travelers, or. I didn't inherit it. I guess
You have
I might have gotten some of it from my wife, who was a lovely woman.
Jean Innes,
Yes.
also a distinguished actress.
Yeah, she is gone now, I'm sorry to say. And my children are projected. I have two. I have a girl and a boy. I don't know whether you met the girl or not. Full of life and
Do you find actors more interesting than most people?
No, I don't. I don't associate with actors a great deal. Just a few. I spend my time with other people. You know, I'm with them in my work.
Right.
And that is enough. That's 5 hours a day in a play. In a picture, that can be 12 hours a day. And,
Did you find in your career that the great Hollywood motion picture actors were a breed apart from the great Broadway actors, Victor?
With some exceptions, yes. Many of them came from Broadway. You know, the Spencer Tracys and the Betty Davis. As a matter of fact, they came from the old stock era. Even the Clark Gable came from, not Broadway, but from theater. Jimmy Cagney came from Broadway. I suppose they were apart. It seems to me that the great stage actors I have worked with, Eva Le Gallienne, Miss Hayes, people like that, had more of an inner dignity than the film actors or actresses had. And the same with the men. I did 11 shows on Broadway. I starred 11 shows.
Did you know Barrymore, for instance?
I knew Mr. Barrymore. I met Mr. Barrymore, and he was my crush. Actually, when I was younger, I always thought, gee, if I could work with that man. I saw him, and I thought he was wonderful, and I still think he's wonderful, even though his records now, his Hamlet and things like that, seem a little corny.
Right.
But you have to remember that was 50 years ago they did that thing, and in that era, if you refer to that era, and you can only report on an era, that he was far better than anybody else.
Did you work with people like Spencer Tracy and Gary Cooper and Tyrone Power and Errol Flynn?
I worked with three of those people. I didn't work with one of them. I worked with Flynn in a couple of films, and Spencer Tracy. I didn't work with Cooper, although I fished with him.
Right.
I've gone fishing with him.
Interesting man.
Oh, charming man.
Not laconic as he was on the screen?
Yes, I would say he was laconic.
Was he?
Yes, he was laid back. He was like he was a true Westerner. at least in his lifestyle. And his
Women
habits.
liked him, it
Oh,
turns out.
yes, very much.
And Tracy, was he the charmer that Katharine Hepburn and so many people, including many millions of film fans, found?
Well, Spencer certainly had a lot of charisma, and I think he was a great actor. I really think that among the film actors that he stands out like a burnished diamond. If you burnish diamonds, I'm not sure. Ladies, I don't think that he had a lot of ladies. I can think of three, you know, in his 60-odd years that he was alive. He loved his work, and he loved Miss Hepburn.
Yes.
Who was a charming lady and a fine actress. She's doing this show, Golden Pond, incidentally. I want to see it because of her, not because of Mr. Fonda or Jane, who, you know.
They're making a film of the play that you're directing.
Yes, they are.
Right.
Yes, they are.
By Errol Flynn, didn't you have a fight with him once?
Yes, yes, I did. Yeah.
What was the circumstance?
Well, he came to my home I always gave a big New Year's party, and a newspaper critic, English newspaper critic named Jonah Ruddy brought him to my home, and I met him. Said, we know what for New Year's we moved everything out of the house. The dining room became a place for them to dance, and the library was a bar, and upstairs bedrooms became a place where you could shoot craps and where you could run slot machines and everything else, which were all fixed in I hope in the guest's favor. And I said, where would you like to go? And he said, in the bar. And Flynn went in. He's the most beautiful and handsome man I've ever seen in my life, physically and facially. Shortly afterwards, a young actor named Byron, I can't think of his last name, little milquetoast guy, weighed about 125 pounds, came out of the room and his glands were all swollen, his neck and were red, and he was furious. And I said, what's the matter, Byron? And Folger was his last name. He said, there's a man in there who's making passes at my wife, he said, and he's got her cornered, and I'm going home. I said, you're not going to stay and have a midnight drink? And he said, no. So I said, show me the man, and he pointed out Flynn. So I went up to Mr. Flynn, and I said, Mr. Flynn, how are you doing? He said, fine, fine. And I said, anything you want? And he said, no. I said, there's some very attractive girls here who are single. Perhaps you'd like to meet. And he said, I'll find my way, old boy. And so I walked away. Shortly afterwards, about 20 minutes, a man named Charles Lane, who was still going, he's making a film in New Zealand at this moment, came out and with the same story. And so I went into Mr. Flynn, and I said, Mr. Flynn, either you're going to have to meet some of these other ladies or you're going to have to leave. He said, supposing I won't go? I said, I'll put you out. He said, can you do that? I said, I haven't got the vaguest idea. I'll certainly try.
Now, Errol Flynn's a pretty big fellow, isn't he?
Yes, he was about the same size as myself, about 185 pounds. He was a little taller than me. I was 6'1", he's maybe 6'2". As we went to the front door to go out on the lawn, he said, let's not make a mess in the house here. I said, all right. He turned and said, I think it's only fair to tell you, old boy, that I came over here as the light heavyweight champion of the Irish Olympic team. I said, well, get your rear end out on the lawn. I'm the light heavyweight champion of Canada, which I was, both professionally and Golden Gloves. And I feinted with my left and hit him with the right, solar plexus, and he assumed his proper position, which was on the ground. And when he finally got his breath back, I said, well, what about it? He said, maybe I'd better meet some of those girls you're talking about. He had a sense of humor.
He laughed.
I saw him just 9 days before his death. He was doing a film and actually was dubbing most of the film. You know, that's afterwards, putting sound to, because he hadn't known his lines.
Probably respected you for having done that.
It was nice to see him, but he was puffy and...
well, some unattractive things were revealed about him after his death, apparently.
I know, but I don't believe he was a Nazi agent, and certainly if he was a homosexual, he kept it well concealed.
Well, Truman
number of
Capote
ladies.
writes about an encounter in that respect with Errol Flynn.
I know the man who wrote the book said that he had something to do with Truman Capote, but I can't imagine it. I really can't.
Who are the beautiful people you remember from Hollywood? Now, for instance, how would a modern-day celebrated beauty such as Bo Derek, for instance, who's supposed to be a 10, you know, on a scale of 10, compare with some of the great Hollywood beauties you've known and worked with?
Oh, I wouldn't consider Bo Derek as anything, except maybe her measurements are right. Maybe she's, whatever those measurements are, 42, 28, 42 or something. I'm sure that's ridiculous, but her measurements probably are very, very good, like Raquel Welch. His measurements are very good, but to compare her with a Dolores Del Rio, who I think is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen or ever worked with, or a Fay Ray, or more recently the Doris Day's, or who was the lady that supposedly committed suicide, the great beauty. She couldn't act much, but she was...
Trying to think, anybody.
Not too bad.
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe. You know, to compare Bo Derek with Marilyn Monroe on any basis of acting or of figure, I think would be ridiculous, although she looks like she doesn't use as much makeup. But to compare her with somebody like Dolores Del Rio, who had a translucent beauty, you could almost, her skin shimmered, you could almost see through it. And it was creamy white. And I worked with her, I played the lead opposite, that was before I was doing villains, in Madame du Barry. I was about 28 at the time, she was about maybe 30. And I worked with her years later in a John Ford picture called Autumn, I can't remember. And Ford said to me, your great favorite is coming on. I said, who? He said, Mr. Del Rio. Now this is 30 years later.
Right.
And she came on and she looked just the same as she had 30 years before. Of course, she took immaculate care of herself. She took one drink of wine in the evenings and went to bed generally around 9 o'clock and did her exercises and yoga and meditation. But she was a beautiful woman. I wouldn't consider Bo Derek.
All right, we'll see whether we hear
Shields,
about that.
you know, this 15-year-old, who I understand from, I was in the A&P line the other day and was looking at a thing called Star. That's a
Fan magazine.
Scandal. Yes, it's like the Enquirer. Incidentally, it's by the man who's bought the London Times.
Murdoch.
Murdoch. And in there it said, in the headlines, there was a big picture of Brooke Shields said her mother taught her to be a sex pot. Well, her mother missed count a little bit, I think.
When television came in, you moved right into it. Now, you've been on such successful series as Bonanza and the Rockford Files and the Virginian and everything.
I had my own series 3 times.
Yes,
One ran 3 years.
A detective on one of them?
Yes, it was called Manhunt. Yes, I've been on all those series. I've done over 600 guest spots on TV.
You know, sometimes I realize, I've been told by actors that they're very profitable, that they pay you a lot of money, especially when they're successful. But others have complained about the work involved, that TV works at a faster pace and more compressed pace than movies. Did you find it confining?
I found it hard work. Of course, the actors, again, everything is relative. You know, actors now do at the most 20 shows a season. We did 38
Right.
with that thing called Manhunt. And it was, I was a detective, and I would ask people, I'd say, where were you on the 18th of August? You say in New York, I'd say, well, you recall 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you were standing in the corner of 4th and Degas Street? Yes. I'd say, and you're wearing a brown suit with black shoes, which is unusual. Why were you wearing the black shoes? You know, he would, that was his dialogue, and I would carry on this, and we did 38 of those a season. We did 116, I think it was, in 3 years. And there was guild rules weren't as strong then. That was 1959. And they would work us sometimes 18, 20 hours a day. They don't do that anymore because after 8 hours they have to start paying overtime and then go what is called golden time. You know.
Well, when you do occasional shows like you were in A Wonderful Indian Chief in Alice,
Yeah.
You played some parts in Rockford Files. Jim Gardner.
Yeah. He's a lovely man.
Is he pleasant to work with?
He's one of the, I think that I'm one of the nicest men in pictures. He is easy and friendly, and I think he thought maybe I was going to die every minute because he, if it rained, he had me in his trailer. My trailer wasn't good enough.
Is that right?
Always after work, he would see that I got some libation before I went home.
Considerate man. I remember tuning in just by accident to Alice one night because I know Vic Tayback, who plays Mel at Mel's
Yeah.
Diner, and seeing you sitting there in one of the restaurant booths as an Indian. And it came back to me that that's certainly not the first Indian you ever played, because one of your most celebrated roles was as Injun Joe
Yes.
in, what, Tom Sawyer?
Yes, Tom's Bench is Tom Sawyer. No, I've done about 30 Indians. I am a 16th Cherokee, and I have a face, I guess, that fits an Indian structure well. I've played 110-year-old Indians at one time or another, 30-year-old Indians. I've played a lot of them. In that thing of Alice, he was a pseudo-Indian. You know, he wasn't an
funny
Indian. He
Indian.
claimed that restaurant was built on his burial grounds and chanted. And
Was that, it would seem to me that in that kind of a series with those kinds of people that there is fun in filming that.
tremendous fun.
Is there laughs?
Tremendous
Are there
fun. And
laughs?
the lady of that series, Alice, is a lovely woman.
Linda Lavin.
She got out and walked our picket lines. I know you don't like talking
I don't
about
mind.
labor, but we feel we're justified.
Yes, you've
in
been very
striking.
active in the Actors Union.
Yes, I am. I've been on the board for 18 years, and I just resigned as vice president, first vice president.
Victor,
Yeah. So
doing your life in a half hour is not long enough, and I hope we'll do it again.
thank you, Milton, and I always enjoy being interviewed by you.
Thank you. Victor Jory, distinguished American actor and director, and man about humanity. Milton Metz.